Alright, hello everybody, welcome to the first round of the Undercity Coliseum tournament. I'm the Elk Speaks, and I'm here getting ready for my first round match up against Duchi. I'm running a Monored Aggro deck for this event. However, the specific build I'm running, I am running a card draw package that consists of 3 Flame of Keld, 2 Experimental Frenzy, 2 Risk Factor. I'm running one of the lower to the ground, even relative to other mono-red aggro decks out there. I think that trying to mess around with Phoenix is just getting a little bit too expensive, and I think that you can actually get a little bit more done if we just go as hard as we can, as fast as we can. I'm using the same list that I actually tested during the Cascade event, so you'll see that as my deck name right here, Cascade Experimental Frenzy. You can see my deck tracker over here, shows Fanatical Firebrand, Gitu Lava Runner, etc. what is remaining in my deck. I'll just keep these videos nice and updated as we progress through the tournament. Unfortunately, it seems like we're getting a little bit of lag and slowdown right now as we're loading into the game. It's going to be a little bit of a problem. There we go. Alright, all set now. Oh, this is an excellent opening hand. Firebrand for turn 1 with a pair of Steamkins. I basically could not ask for a better opening hand. So we're just going to go ahead, run out the Firebrand turn 1. Let's see what he has. Alright. So he's not going to pay 2 life because we are mono red. This is Jeskai Control build. We're just going to go ahead, run out the Steamkin, and hope that he doesn't have a removal in hand. The Steamkin gets me so far ahead if he can't deal with it that I absolutely have to take the risk here. He does have the Syncopate, unfortunately, but that'll give me the opportunity on the next turn to try and run out a second Steamkin, potentially, depending on what the situation is. So let's see what he puts down on turn 3. Nothing. He's probably holding up another counter spell. I'm still going to keep my Chain Whirler in hand. I could run out Lava Runner and a Wizard's Lightning, but I think I'm going to take my shot with a second Steamkin and see if he has a second removal or counter in hand. And unfortunately he does. That's going to be the Sinister Sabotage, but that will get my Lava Runner safely into play. So the good news is that we forced him to use 2 of his counters. The bad news is that we did not successfully land a Steamkin on board. However, we have another one of our premier threats still in hand, and that would be our Chain Whirler. He only has 1 mana here. I don't believe he can counter me at all here. So we're just going to go ahead and directly run out the Chain Whirler and attack. Holding up Wizard's Lightning depending on what comes down on his side. I could just try and run this Wizard's Lightning out end step and see if I pick up anything on my turn that makes that valuable. I think right here I do that because worst comes to worst, I'm forcing him to counter and then freeing up my turn if he wants to. That's valuable information. He didn't even blink when that happened, so I don't believe he's holding another counter in hand at all. Yeah, there's no response window at all here. We're free rolling at this point. We could still be playing into a settle, however. We'll hold back the Firebrand. No, I think he could have a Settle the Wreckage here. Settle the Wreckage or Deafening Clarion are both possibilities, but I think, given our particular mix of draw, we actually just go ahead and play anyway. Seal Away. Okay, that's not as bad as it could have been. If we were playing into Settle, that could have been bad. Double Seal Away. Wow. That is interesting. Alright, well, we've got him down to 8. We are Hellbent at this point. And he has a Crackling Drake. On the other hand, he's currently tapped out. If anything crazy starts to go down, we're just going to attack. 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 Let's see if he thinks he's priced into the block or not. Yep, he's priced into the block. Shock it. Teferi, that's to be expected. Is Jeskai Control, drawing a card, gonna hold up a counter spell if he can. Presumably, let's see what lands he untaps. We're gonna assume, yep. Lands give him access to the full suite of the worst things in his deck for us. Let's try Steamkin, run it out, and it's gonna get countered, predictably. I cannot afford to let this Teferi get out of control. So we are going to have to attack into the Teferi, which is not what I want to be doing here. But really the way we're winning this game is getting a draw spell into multiple burn spells. And just keeping Teferi from getting his emblem is the most important thing that I can be doing here. Burnt through a lot of the counter spells in my opponent's deck. I don't think there's a whole lot of ways that he can be interacting with me on the counter spells anymore. We've already seen several counter spells from this deck in his deck list. Yeah, he only had 2 syncopates. He still has 1 disdainful stroke, which isn't going to be played against us on anything but one of our premier threats. Like, Experimental Frenzy is the only card in my deck that can even interact with. He does have an Essence Scatter still, and he still has 2 more Sinister Sabotage. This is an open deck list event, so I'm completely aware of the contents of my opponent's deck here. At this point, I'm mostly trying to avoid Deafening Clarion or one of the Niv Mizzets. Chemister's Insight, I don't really care.
You know what? I'm not done yet.
He has multiple threats that he could be drawing into, but ultimately this game is going to come down to whether I draw my threats or not, and I'm on a medium clock here. But as I said before, he has burned through multiple of his counter spells already. So at this point, just keeping his Teferi from getting any further ahead is the only thing that I need to be doing.
I won't let you win.
The Settle the Record is actually in his sideboard, and he only has 1 of them. So that means that I do not have to be playing around it in game 1. I forgot that the Settle was only in his sideboard. It's both Seal Aways already played. He has the his Expansion Explosion. Could be coming down at some point. I'm expecting a massive Expansion Explosion at some point here. Let's see what else he's got. He has an established Teferi. The way we win the game here is a Flame of Keld or an Experimental Frenzy that we successfully land. Most of the cards in his deck cannot prevent me from getting one of those onto the board. He can Teferi -3, but when he does, that's going to start to be a huge problem for him. Okay, here we go. Second Fanatical Firebrand. Now we can actually start to make progress against this Teferi. Or we can start going to the face. No, I think we have to play the quote-unquote safer line here. Just because this Teferi is so dangerous if he actually gets to start accelerating with it. Let's see if I can Wizard's Lightning the Teferi. He might have a counter spell in hand, but if he counters this, he's not countering something else. Yep, Teferi down. That's exactly what I needed to get back in this game. Cleansing Nova, just in time. Alright. And the second Teferi. Of course there is. Okay.
Sorry I'm late. Keep up the pace.
Well, that's interesting. That tells us a lot about what's going on here. But unfortunately, I think we've probably lost here. I really need to get a Chain Whirler. Risk factor will not quite get the job done. Maybe I should... I'm at 6 lands now. I can sandbag for a double risk factor turn if I draw another land.
No time for a break.
He has no more syncopates anyway, so I can absolutely sandbag for a second risk factor. Ah, Frenzy. Alright, does he have his Disdainful Stroke? He does not have Disdainful Stroke. That's the 3rd Sinister Sabotage. So what counter spells does he have left? He has 1 more Sinister Sabotage, 1 Essence Scatter, 1 Disdainful Stroke. That's all that's left. That's very interesting. There's 3 counter spells left in his whole deck. So we know what we're playing around. Teferi has to get burned as fast as possible. He's very low on counter spells. Steamkin comes down. Does he have the 3rd counter spell? Sinister Sabotage number 4. Okay, so now we need to draw Burn or a Haste creature on our next turn or we lose the game. He has no more Sinister Sabotage. He can Essence Scatter. So our ideal draw this turn is going to be one of our 3 Shocks or one of our 3 Lightning Strikes to secure stop to Teferi. He cannot counter that. Viashino Pyromancer. He can counter that if he has the 1 Essence Scatter in his deck. Otherwise, he cannot counter the Viashino Pyromancer.
Hey, that was uncalled for.
He can probably kill the Viashino Pyromancer, but it stops him from getting the Teferi Emblem. Yep, there's a Justice Strike. That's his only Justice Strike. We're going to be looking at, yeah, Niv Mizzet is pretty much his only out to win the game. Unfortunately, Niv Mizzet more or less will lock up the game for him unless we get an insane combination. Again, we want to be sandbagging a card if we can. Chain Whirler's out the card we sandbag. Does he have the Essence Scatter? He does not. 7. Alright. Yeah, at this point we're still looking at double risk factor as the main way that we win this game. Deafening Clarion? Yeah, that's definitely something we had to play around here. Alright. So let's look at this. He has Shivan Fire's going to be coming in. The extra Seal Away, the extra Fiery Cannonade are going to be coming in. Probably the Invoke the Divines. Maybe the Lyra is coming in on his deck. There's a lot of different ways we could take this. Okay, Pyromancer again. Yeah. Really have no realistic way to get ahead here. We have to kill Niv Mizzet if we want to win this game, which requires 2 burn spells. I don't think we're getting there this game. We'll play it out, but I don't think we're getting there. Explosion, yeah, that's game. Drawing almost his entire deck and dealing a lot of damage to me. Yeah, I'll just concede and speed up the animation. So now because we don't have the opportunity to sideboard in the game, we will edit our deck over here and look at our sideboard. So, in our sideboard we have Lava Coil, Fight with Fire, Rekindling Phoenix, Karn, and Banefire. So we're definitely bringing the Banefires in. because we need a little bit of extra reach here. Oops, that was not what I meant to do. Banefire. 1, 2, 3 is what I meant to do. What are we going to side out? What's the least useful cards against this opponent? I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't expect Flame of Kel's going to have a very hard time. He's got multiple enchantment answers. Let's see what we're gonna do. Let's pull. Yeah, we're gonna have a really hard time going off with Flame of Keld, so I'm gonna move the Flame of Kelds out. He's got too much enchantment removal. If we want to bring in the Karn, I think we bring in the Karn. That gives us a. I think that gives us a little bit more here if we bring in the Karn. Just a little bit more oomph. What do I trim? I can probably trim one of the firebrands. I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's playing that well against him. Move just a little bit up, give myself a little bit more inevitability, and we'll see where that goes. I could play the Rekindling Phoenix, but he's mostly countering me. So Rekindling Phoenix isn't strong against counter magic, it's strong against removal. So let's go ahead, let's see, this is the build I'm going to use here. So Cascadia F. Let's just confirm that the edits have been successfully made, and they have. Alright. Ready when you are. Just go ahead in here. In the current match, we are now 0-1. As soon as my opponent gives me the go-ahead, I will send the invite. Definitely say that we had the upper hand at the beginning there, but we just couldn't quite manage to get through there. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to be waiting a minute or two on my opponent to sideboard here. This has been ultimately, I think this is an okay matchup. Jeskai Control is one of our worst matchups as the mono red deck. Jeskai Control and Golgari are the two decks that I'm really ideally looking to dodge here. I absolutely beat up on the Phoenix Drake deck. I have pretty good matchup against the Dimmer deck. Very strong matchup against the White Weenie deck. Which I would say are the other strong pillars of the format right now. I expect to see a little bit of Merfolk in this format. Even some of the other control combinations, if they're not going to be as counterspell dense, I feel pretty favored. The Mono U Tempo deck has been on the decline in the meta right now. I'm not really expecting to see a ton of it in this tournament, but I think there might be some. Likewise with the Mono Green deck, and obviously we are overwhelming favorites against both of those decks. But the real deck that we're looking to beat up on here is a Drake's deck and the White Weenie deck. Also the green-white tokens, I suppose. Anytime that my opponent's playing X1s that die to Chain Whirler, die to Firebrand, anytime my opponent's playing X2s that just die to Shock, anytime that we're looking at any of those things, we're overwhelmingly favored. Anytime we're looking at decks that just can't stop you once you get an Experimental Frenzy on the board, if there's not enough enchantment removal in the format, again, you're overwhelmingly favored. Alright, let's take a look at our starting hand. Wow, that is an interesting starting hand. I would not consider that an ideal starting hand. But we have 3 lands. We're playing 3 1-drops in the first 2 turns. This gives us a huge start, Lightning Strike to answer any early threat, though this deck is not going to be playing an early threat. But I think we're going to go ahead and... Unfortunately, I did not get to go first here, which is less than ideal. But anytime I can just land multiple firebrands on the board very quickly, that does a lot to contribute to an aggressive game plan. We don't want to be playing into a Deafening Clarion here, but as long as we don't get Deafening Clarions, we're settled. I feel like we're in okay shape. Fiery Cannonade does not work against pirates. Oops. Well, that was a little bit of a blunder from our opponent. Let's see if we have the punish. We're representing 6 on board. We have another 3 in hand. I'm gonna fire it off on his end step. So you have a settle, no settle. We are overwhelmingly ahead. At this point, I'm gonna fire off the Lightning Strike on his end step, and we'll see what happens. Attack, no attacks, and combat. Lightning Strike. Try that. Alright, my turn. We're going to do the safe route, attack with only the Chain Whirler to prevent any settle nastiness. Seal away. Okay. Does he have the Revitalize? He does not. GG. And that is how you kill people with Mono Red. Alright. Well, that is what happens when your creatures are pirate, and one of the better board wipes in the format does not target pirates. I'm gonna go ahead and look at my sideboard one more time and see if I need any further changes to this. I think from the way that played out, I don't need a whole lot else. The Lava Coils are not going to do me any good in this matchup. I actually did cut 1 Firebrand too. That's... You know, let's do that. Let's put 1 Firebrand back in, take 1 Lava Runner out. Because he is counting somewhat on that Fiery Cannonade to stop us. Yeah. I drew all 3 of the Firebrands that I left in the deck. That was extremely lucky. Fight with Fire's never getting there. Could kill Niv Mizzet. No, we're not playing Fight with Fire. That's a mistake. We cannot afford to play anything that does not go to the face. We have to put the 4th Firebrand back in. Let's take out Yoshino. No. Let's take out Gitu. 1 Gitu. Oh, we'll call that done. Alright. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Alright, and let's see what we get for our 3rd game. Alright. Ugh, that's a terrible starting hand. I cannot keep that at all. My opponent gets to go first again. which is also not something that makes us favored. But we've got this. Two Banefires in the starting hand is not what we want. Two lands with no creatures at all. We have to mulligan that, as much as I hate to. Okay, that's a perfectly fine starting hand. I will keep that. Bury the land. Alright, Lava Runner. Lava Runner into Steamkin into Chain Whirler is a lovely possibility for 3 turns. Let's see if you have a 2-mana counter spell. There aren't that many of them in your deck. Let's see if you have one. You've got 2 Syncopates. Yep, you have the Syncopate. Of course you do. Alright, we'll just go ahead and attack in. Let's see what you have. You have a second counter spell. Let's find out. Sinister Sabotage. Yep. Okay. Well, that's 2 of your counters spent. And you're at 16. 4, that means Settle is a possibility. Crackling Drake is here. Okay. So, we might be trading multiple cards in for this Crackling Drake, but there's no real other way to play around it. Yeah, the only thing in our graveyard is that Chain Whirler, so that doesn't even work. We'll give him 1 turn to attack. Try and bait the attack. Failing that, we'll attack with Pyro and Lava Runner. And then Firebrand as backup. Let's see what happens here with his Teferi.
I am not going to sit there. Let's skip to the good part.
Okay, Teferi's going to die very fast. Teferi must die very fast here. Turn. Let's see what we get. Combat, attack. You're gonna block the Lava Runner. Okay, yep. The Crackling Drake is essentially a 4-for-1 here. There's no choice. Syncopate. Yes. Pay 1.
That didn't pan out. You know what? I'm not done yet.
Well, he's playing through a lot of his card draw here. Let's see what we get. I don't know what. Okay, Firebrand. That gets me down to. That gets him down to 3 on the Teferi. Combat. I could be playing into a Settle here, but I don't really have much other choice. And at some point this deck is actually reasonably okay against Settle. Explosion. Wow, he's desperate. Like, that means desperation. When you're casting Explosion for 2 to kill my creature, you are completely desperate. He's very much on the back foot. I need to get card draw. And unfortunately, we've cut our Flame of Kelds. I think we had to, though. But we really need to get card draw moving, which is going to mean the risk factor. It's going to mean the Experimental Frenzy. At some point the Banefire is fine too. If Banefire just lets us kill this dude. Like, do you have the counterspell for the Lightning Strike? Again, anytime you're countering a Lightning Strike... Okay, you're expansioning the Lightning Strike. Who are you targeting? Because if you're targeting Firebrand, you're targeting me. Okay, resolve. Yep, that just happened. Combat, attack.
Time for plan B.
Teferi dead. My opponent's very much on the back foot, even though he just had a second Teferi. He's going to struggle to keep his Teferi alive if I draw anything that does anything. Our Lava Runners are now active because that's the second spell in our graveyard. Our opponent's had to spend multiple counter spells already. So let's see what we can do. Is he going to play an Essence Scatter on a Firebrand? I'm thinking that means he has an Essence Scatter in hand, but we'll find out. Could be a Deafening Clarion as well. Could be Deafening Clarion, could be... Seal Away, okay.
Enough.
Spending a Seal Away on a Fanatical Firebrand, though. Again, that's not the play that someone who's ahead makes.
We need to move quickly.
However, the truth is I'm still kind of screwed. Because that Niv Mizzet, as soon as it comes down, the game is entirely about Niv Mizzet. One Banefire and I'm back in the game, but other than a Banefire, I'm kind of screwed here. So we'll see what happens. But... yeah, Niv Mizzet is just such a hard card to beat. We did not get the job done here. Feel like, again, if we get a Banefire, we are... I'd argue if we get a Banefire here, we're probably still favored to win. We are no longer favored to win, even with Banefire. Lyrodon is too much. Go ahead and scoop if we don't draw a Banefire if we don't draw exactly Banefire, we scoop. Yep, that's game. Alright. I'll just put Steamkin on the stack and you can see it, and there's the Essence Scatter. I think we played acceptably there. Like, this was not a matchup we were favored in. But that brings the current match to 1-2 and our tournament record to 0-1. But on the whole, I think we played pretty well in that match. Just didn't quite break our way. Might want to reconsider my sideboard approach if I'm going to face Jeskai Control again. I'm not sure that that was exactly what I wanted. But I have such a hard time sticking the enchantment against this deck that I think that still might be the play. Other than that, very good play by my opponent. Close match overall. And I'll see you next week with the second round of the Undercity Coliseum tournament. Signing off, this is the Alex Speaks.